Well, welcome back again. This is another session of the 7th grade drawing project. We're working on a 1-point perspective project. We covered that in the notes, as I recall. And we're using, I've got more than one type of ruler I'm experimenting with here in order to do this project. And you're going to need, of course, a pencil and an eraser probably for this, and a good ruler. I like this one right here because it's visible on the camera. I also like this one right here because it's got good measurements on it. When I turn it right side up or upside down, I can use it as well, although it's a little bit reflective on the camera, especially in the middle of the camera. Over here and stuff, it works fine. So I'm just going to keep experimenting with the rulers that I've got here until I find the one that works best for me. Sometimes I use this one here too. It's not quite so reflective, but the numbers are not so easily seen either. So, you know, they've all got their advantages and their drawbacks. So I'm going to go ahead and sharpen up my pencil to get myself ready for this. And we're going to continue working on, it looks like, this building over here on the left side of the street. When we left off yesterday, we had just finished up the roof on this, the gable end, typical gable end roof as we call it, and we're getting ready to move on to some other stuff. So yesterday we drew this door, and as I recall, it was 6 centimeters tall from this line to this registration dot that we put there. So a lot of times we can simply park on the vanishing point and hold the corner of the ruler there and lower it until we can find just a tiny bit of that door peeking out from behind the ruler. So you kind of hold this here, you lower your ruler so you see it, and then slide it up just to where it almost touches it, so you can see it. Okay, now what we're going to put in, and then we should be able to, because this building is appearing to get smaller as it goes away from us, we should be able to put 2 small marks in there, and they should slant directly toward the vanishing point like it does right now. And so I'm going to have this building, actually I'll tell you what, we'll draw one continuous mark, and it will have a space on either side of it. At the end of this project, when it starts to, the coloring portion of it begins, we really do need a little bit of space between each side of these door jambs, so that it just looks more realistic that way. So what I've done is, see, I held it right there on the vanishing point, found this door, the top of this door, and then I simply drew in this line, okay, diagonal line. Now, what I want to do is rotate my ruler, and if I drew this building straight up and down, like parallel to this line right here, then it would be easy to make our door jamb look straight up and down. So we just turn our ruler till we find just a little bit of that door jamb sticking out from behind it. I like to put my pencil on it, see, sometimes, and then I slide the ruler up to the pencil. That way I don't have to look so hard, see, and I can straighten my ruler out, come on now, and then make a mark for the far side of the door. And it should be parallel to the building, the side of the building. The jamb should be. Same thing goes for this side right here. Now if we work backhanded, which is a tough way to do your drawing, but sometimes there's no other way, so I'm going to find the edge of that little door right there, sticking out, and then when I slide my ruler up against it, all I got to do is make sure that the ruler is straight up and down, perfectly vertical, and then I'm going to draw my line. Now I want this particular building to be a double door, so what we're going to do is put in a little marking right here about halfway across it, okay, and then we're going to once again take our ruler, find our little registration mark, put the ruler right up against our pencil, make sure it's straight up and down, and we're going to divide it. And we should have 2 doors that are almost exactly the same size. Okay, that's so simple sometimes. Now what I want to do in this particular building is I want to draw in 3 windows, but we're also going to have a place for a sign as well. So very similar to how we did these windows over here, if we did them properly, we should be able to put the corner of our ruler on that vanishing point and rotate up all the way till we can see just the very top of that first window sticking out. Alright? So, that's it. We're going to draw a line, and each time we draw a line, we're going to rotate downward, and we really don't even have to measure it. We're going to do this 6 times. So we draw a line, most of the way across the building. We leave a small space on either side. Make sure that we are on the vanishing point right here, just like if we drilled a hole in it and put a thumbtack in it. So we hold it down carefully and we rotate down. Now we're going to use our next line. It's going to come off of this window. So we rotate down, check the vanishing point, hold our ruler down, and then we're going to strike in our next line. And it should line up one above the other if you did it right. Same here, okay? So hold the ruler down, rotate it down to the next window. There it is. And we're going to do the exact same operation again. We're going to follow that line of that window, and we're going to transfer a line over here. And if we're doing it properly, each one of the windows of the side will line up one above the other. Now, that doesn't have to be absolutely perfectly. We may have to fuss with it a little later, okay? Now, we're going to continue this. We're going to find the bottom of this window over here, check the vanishing point, hold the ruler down firmly, and try to draw in the next line, which should be directly below the previous lines, okay, if you can make that happen. Okay, so now we've got the space, a window, second space, second window. So we're going to go down to the third window now. So we find our vanishing point. We're going to rotate this just a little bit right here so we can see the top of that window showing above it. And then we're going to draw our line yet again. So we just continue to do this. So let's see, we've got the space, window 1, space, window 2, space. This is the last line for our windows, and then we're going to put a rather large window basically. It's going to be a sign. And we'll draw this line. Okay. And how easy was that? Now, in the rest of this, there would be, normally we would put a window maybe over here, but we're going to put a sign in there instead, a place for you to put a sign for whatever this building is going to be. So I guess it's important, first of all, let's go ahead and close up the sides of our windows here before we move to the next thing. So I like to orient my ruler so it's straight up and down so I can see just, if I put my pencil on the edge, on the corner of one of those windows, and I put my pencil right up against it, or my ruler right up against it, it would stop the ruler. And so now I want this to be straight up and down, parallel to the side of the building, and I just close up a line, lift up, close up a line, lift up, close up a line. There's all there is to it. We're going to do the same thing in reverse when we have to use the backhanded side of the ruler. So I'm going to put my pencil, I'm not left-handed even, but I'm going to put my pencil on the corner of that window, just like that. I'm going to push that ruler up against it, and I'm going to make sure that it is straight up and down, which it appears to be. Now, I got to change hands. Because I'm right-handed, you know. And I got to find those lines peeking out just from behind the ruler. Then I go line, lift up, line, lift up, line, lift up. And there we go. Now we've got our 3 windows. So I want to put a billboard or a large sign in this as well. So this is quite simple. So we just go to the vanishing point one more time. We're going to rotate up till we find the top of this window over here, the very last window in the first building. We're going to hold our ruler down, and we're going to make a line that goes most of the way across the building. Now we're going to rotate down till we find the top of that door right there. See it? And we're going to rotate up just a little bit until it covers it up just a bit, about right there. And then we're going to draw in the line. So this is going to be like a large display window, or perhaps a balcony, or I would just use it as a large billboard or a sign. Close up the side of that billboard or sign, same thing over here. And if we have done it right, we should have a building that's got a large, 2 doors, a large display window, and 3 regular windows in it, and a pointed, typical gable roof. Alright, well, so we're starting to make some progress here. So we're just going to keep on moving down our road, and we're going to measure off some distance here. So from this line right here, if this was 2 centimeters up here, we would want our next alleyway to be just slightly smaller than that. So we're going to go to the middle of the building right here. I'm going to put a dot there, although if you can find the middle of the building, you don't have to worry that much about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to find 2 centimeters, but we're not going to go quite to that. We're going to back up just a tiny bit, just one of these little teeny markings. Okay, so not quite 2 centimeters, and place a dot there. Okay, so not quite 2 centimeters. Not quite 2 centimeters. And then we've got to take our ruler again, and we're going to reorient it. I like to draw on this side right here, so it's perfectly straight up and down, parallel to the sides of the paper. Check it over here if you must. If your building here is straight, you can work backhanded if you think you've got the skill. And that's what I'm going to try to do here. So I'm going to find my registration dot that's not quite 2 centimeters away. I'm going to orient my ruler straight up and down. Hold it down firmly. I'm pressing very firmly on the ruler. I'm going to strike my mark. Now, when I look at it, that's pretty good. Like we did over here, and this is a very repetitious operation. We do the same markings many times over, and then eventually you will be able to understand how this works through repetition. So just how we had this area right in here where we can drive into the alleyway, we have to do the same thing. Right here, if we put our pencil right there, and we slide our ruler up to it, it would have to go straight sideways from that mark, from that corner. Straight sideways into the alleyway, and it starts to enhance that three-dimensional illusion. You start to get that three-dimensional effect. So I'm going to erase that out of there, and I've got a little duster brush to help me with that, so I don't smear my work. Very good. Now, if I were to put my pencil right here, and I slide that ruler up to it till it hits it, then all I got to do is find that tiny little corner. Should be straight, perfectly horizontal, parallel to the top of the paper. And find it and mark it in there. Carefully strike the line, erase. What could be easier? This is very much like the exercise that we did in the notes. Now, we're going to move on here. This building might appear to be a little bit wider because we're going to use it as some sort of a, like a maintenance facility of sorts, okay? So I'm going to use the centimeter side of my ruler. And I think it should be about, honestly, about this big right here, I suppose. So what is that distance? Why don't we call it 4... Well, that's a tough call. I guess we'll have to call it 4 1/2 centimeters. So place the bottom of the ruler on the previous line, measure off 4 1/2 centimeters. Make a dot. And that would be, I'm going to write this one in for you, 4 1/2 centimeters. Now we're going to rotate our ruler, find our dot. Should be perfectly straight up and down, vertical, parallel to the side of the paper in this orientation. Straight up and down, hold the ruler down firmly, strike your mark. Now, we should have what appears to be a rather large building beginning to develop. And like we did with this typical gable roof over here, we are going to draw an antenna from this one. So we're going to take our pencil and we're going to estimate about 1/2 of the distance across this particular building, and we'll put a dot above the line. And it's just got to be an estimate. It does not have to be perfect, but it helps if it's pretty close to perfect. Now we're going to measure off. Let's see, how far should this thing go up in the air? I'm going to call it 6 centimeters. So if we take the 6 of our ruler and we place it on that dot, 6 centimeters, and we orient it straight up and down, then we should be able to draw a line that would start at the top of the building right there, at the 6 on the centimeters, hold the ruler down, and draw a line that would stop at the 0. It's like an antenna sticking up out of the picture. Now I draw rather darkly because I am attempting to make a video, and you must be able to see what I'm doing. However, you should draw lightly so that you can erase these markings easily. These markings will come out. Over here, as you can see, there's still a bit of a shadow in behind this, and that may affect the way it gets colored eventually. Now, this particular building is going to have a slightly varied roof from the previous one. And this roof is going to be a curved roof. Now, people try to draw just one swoopy curved line, and they usually are struggling with that. I've had the most success instructing students by doing the following. We start here on this corner of the building, and we're simply just going to draw a curved dotted line. Now, the dotted line is easy to follow, and furthermore, if you mess it up, you can erase it easily. So all I'm doing is a dotted line, and I'm not so sure you can see it clearly, but that's all I'm doing, and I just keep going back and dotting that line. And I just want to try to get a nice smooth curve as I dot it in. It's kind of a bit of a sketching technique. And so when I finally got that dotted line, then I can go back and just, basically smooth it out and connect the dots, I guess. That's pretty much all there is to it. So, okay, so there we go. So that's one part of the curved roof. This was kind of inspired, believe it or not, by the gymnasium roof on our gymnasium at Warner Middle School. And it's kind of built like an airplane hangar a little bit, and it looks pretty neat, and so I included that image into the 7th grade drawing project. Alright, well, now we got to do the same thing over here. Now, this is a little bit more complicated. Now, I'm able to wheel around here, and you could either turn your drawing upside down, or you can approach it from a different direction. So that's why my hand appears to be upside down here. I just wheeled around the table. So I'm going to start here, and we're just going to try to make a nice curved dotted line that stops directly on the top of the other side of the building. And then once you got the dotted line, we're just going to keep on dotting. Now, the reason we've got to do these drawing, like the ends of the roofs like this, in 2 passes is because of a phenomenon called foreshortening. And foreshortening is simply the idea that as you turn something in space, and this building is being turned so that we're seeing the front and the side of it at the same time. So when you turn something in space, what it does is it distorts the image that you are seeing. So these 2 arcs are not the same. These 2 triangles, when we split this triangle and this triangle are not the same triangles. So in order to make this look convincing, we have to foreshorten it, and that requires us to draw things like arcs and triangles in more than one pass. If you tried to do it with just, without dividing it in half, you might succeed, but the probability is low. Alright, now that I've got that dotted in appropriately, I'm simply going to connect my dots and smooth it out and check it out and see what I've got. And you know what? That looks pretty good. So I go ahead and bold that line up so it's more visible as the drawing develops. So I try to start with a light touch, and I recommend that all students do that. But I will admit to the fact that it's not always easy, and when you see me drawing darkly, that doesn't make it any easier either. Alright, let's go ahead and erase this out of there, and I'll dust it quickly. Now, I've got the front of what's going to be like a maintenance building or a garage or a car repair place, something similar to that. Now, we've got to put in the ridge or the peak of this roof, so we're going to find the top of it Okay, push your pencil right up against it. Maybe make sure you can still see it right there, okay? Now, it has to be perfectly horizontal, meaning straight sideways. And if this one is straight sideways, then that should help you get this, but it needs to be parallel to the top of the paper. So I'm going to find the top of my building there, I'm going to draw my line, and then I'm going to see what I've done. That's pretty good. It may be tilting uphill just a little bit, and that kind of messes with me, so I'm going to have to kind of monkey with it. But that looks okay. I'm going to leave that alone. It's I have a common tendency to want to overwork things a lot and keep messing with them until they don't come out right. Alright, now we're going to just simply reproduce this curve right here 3 times. And my advice for you is to trace over that curve a little bit. Trace over it a little bit. And then we're going to just come in about this far, and we're going to make a dotted line again. And then we're just going to go back and forth on that dotted line until it matches the curve of this roof. Just like our gymnasium roof. So I've got that. It looks pretty good. I'm going to darken it up, bold it. And that looks pretty good too. So as we go on, the drawing just, begins to develop. It's amazing to watch it when you start. It is such a empty piece of paper, and then as you go along it becomes very complex. So now we're going to try the same thing again about right here, and we're going to dot dot along until we match this curve. Yeah, it looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to darken it, bolden it in. And then if you've got space this far down here, for me it would just be a tiny little marking, the tiniest little indication that that roof is still disappearing back in there. So that looks pretty good, my opinion. Now we got to move on and start drawing other portions in this, other items in our building here. Now I'm going to start out by doing a garage door. So since this building is essentially a maintenance garage or some sort of a like the barn where they keep the snow plows or a car repair place, a lot of people see a lot of things in it. But we've got a reason why this door needs to be bigger. What starts happening, I'll show you. If we put the vanishing point and the ruler always on here, and then if we always come off the previous doors, what will happen is our doors start to look really small as we get farther down the street, and the building starts to look enormous. And so the closer you get to the vanishing point, you start having some issues. However, in this case, we've got a reason why that this door can be bigger. So let's put the corner of the ruler right on the vanishing point. We're going to orient it almost perfectly straight sideways. Now, strangely, if you've been following the instruction, this window and the top of the sign in the second building line up with each other too, so we could just line all that up. Man, will that move your viewer's eyes. So we're going to make a mark, and there will be a small amount of space on each side of this mark. And just like the other doors that we have done over here, we're going to turn our ruler sideways. We're going to find the side of the building. We're going to have just a little bit of that. I like to put my pencil right on the corner of that, where that's going to be, and push the ruler up against it. And then hold the ruler down. Must be parallel to the side of the building, parallel to the side of the paper. And we draw it straight up and down. We're going to do the same thing again, maybe backhanded, because if you've got this straight, and you can also look at this side of the paper. So if you put your pencil right there, and you push the ruler up against it, see what you got. Make sure it's perfectly straight up and down, vertical, parallel to the left side of the paper. So now we've got a large garage door. And we're going to put in panels on our garage door. And we're going to do this by dividing it up a little bit. So we're going to put a dot in the middle of our garage door right here. We're going to go half that distance and put a dot right here. And we're going to go half this distance and put a dot right here. So what we'll have here is basically 1, 2, 3, like 4 panels on the garage door. And it's really quite simple. If we put the corner of the ruler on the vanishing point and we hold it down, we're going to find the top of our first dot. So, see, if we put our pencil on the dot and it's on the vanishing point, it's just going to stop right there. And it's got to point towards the vanishing point. So we simply draw our line across the garage door, we hold this down, rotate it. It's got to be on that vanishing point. Here's the next dot. And so you can probably get the idea that all these lines seem to be pointing toward the vanishing point, and you would be correct. We're going to hold that down again, make sure it's on the vanishing point, and we look right here. And we continue this on. Okay, so what we've got now, let's see what we've got. We've got a garage door that has like 4 panels in it. Now we're going to have to put some windows into this garage. And we're going to put a nice squarish window way up in the top of it. So let's, somewhere about right here, we want to put a dot. About right there. In the middle of our 3rd building. Now we're going to hold our ruler down on the vanishing point, and we're going to go, wow, that is really, really steep. I wonder how this is going to look. This is going to be crazy looking. I hope it's going to be okay. Let's try it. So if we draw a line that goes most of the way across this, will it look right? Let me try this first. Let's experiment. I've never tried this before, this far above the vanishing point. Well, it looks kind of strange, but it might work. It looks kind of strange, but it might work. So, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hold it down there. I'm going to rotate that. Maybe if we take this line right here and we tilt it up like this, what would happen? So we take this line and we try to match that line at that tilt. Would that work? I'll tell you what. We're going to come back to this. We're going to come back to this. I'm going to put a big question mark in there until I figure out what I want to do with that. I've never tried that before, but it looks kind of awkward. But we will put 2 windows in this, and that's easy enough to do. Hold your ruler down. Rotate it up until we get to we find the tops of the windows in the first 2 buildings. See the tops of the windows in the first 2 buildings. Okay. Now we're going to draw our line right here. It goes most of the way across our garage building. We're going to make sure this is on the vanishing point. We're going to rotate down. Okay, we're going to find the bottoms of these windows, and they line up too, and we're going to draw another line right here. Okay, we're going to do this 2 more times. We'll go down to this building right here, so we can line them up. We can see this building and this window and this building, so we can shoot our line off of that. And then we're going to make sure this is on the vanishing point. We're going to rotate down to the bottom of this window and see how it lines up here and here. And we'll line it up, so make sure you check the vanishing point, and we'll draw our next window in. Okay, so as you're noticing, the windows get smaller as they get farther and farther away from us. So let's close those up. If we use the side of our garage door as a guide, then we can make this straight up and down. We can close up that window, close up that window. And we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. We're going to find the side of our garage door, slide the ruler up against it, make sure it's perfectly straight up and down, and then I'm going to close up that window. I'm going to close up that window. Okay, now, see, that's really quite simple. Now, I am perplexed by this particular phenomenon here, so we may have to, that is heavily, heavily foreshortened, but I mean, it reads properly, kinda, so I'm going to keep monkeying with this. If I were to draw this, let's go here, because I want this to be a sign on all of this So if this is the way it looks there, if I just barely rotate it up a little bit more, and I like this perhaps, so I'm making a dark mark on it. I may have to live with what I've created. Okay, I'm going to connect it together because I'm drawing heavy-handed, so I'm going to have to live with whatever happens. And then, well, I think this will work. I think it will work. It looks kind of odd, but I think it will work. Okay. Now that is a heavily foreshortened window. Let's clean all this mess out of there. And this is going to be a sign for this particular building. Alright. Well, see, we've done yesterday, and let's clean that up a little bit. Yesterday, we did one complete building, and we started this one. Today, we were able to finish that building out and start a third complete building and get it completed. So, I'll tell you what though, this I may still put a question mark in there. I may have to rework that. Sometimes they just don't come out looking like you think they should. And that looks really odd. Let me check my perspective again. Okay, it's on the vanishing point. The bottom of the window is pointing toward it. Rotate it up, the top of the window is pointing toward the vanishing point. The sides of it are straight up and down. It must be correct, logically. It just looks funny. And I could probably help myself out by maybe doing something like this. This might help a little bit. Make it more understandable to people. So sometimes you gotta... These are kind of those things that M.C. Escher messed with your mind about. So now it looks kind of like it's recessed back into the building a little bit. There's a little three-dimensional. So I may have to still continue to mess with that. I want to keep that question mark in there so I keep addressing it. Alright, well, you know, we're getting a lot of work done here today, and I guess we could go ahead and think about some of the things that we'll be doing with our doors and our windows. And so in this case, I believe trying to draw in windows from the vanishing point, square windows, is really quite tedious and hard to do. However, if you simply use diamond shapes or oval shapes, they look a little fancier and they're easier to draw. So the only thing is they need to be looking like they are stuck to the front of the door when you do this. So that diamond shaped window is pretty attractive. And then you can also put in the little push plates, you know, where you walk in and out of buildings, and those would be kind of trapezoids or parallelograms in this case, okay, to make it look like it's stuck to the front of the door. Now in this case I would use ovals, so they could kind of line up a little bit, and there's no law about how big your ovals should be or how small, but this one that's closer to us should be slightly larger than the one which is the next door away, right? So just slightly, almost microscopically, almost imperceptibly larger. So that looks pretty good. And if I put another one right here and match it, it'd be riding just a little bit higher in the picture because it's closer up to the vanishing point. And then I might put my little door handles in like this, just to keep it interesting. Alright, so these kinds of things are just stuff that you can do with your drawing as you go along and try to work your way through it all. Some people see this garage door as actually being raised up slightly, so if you were to find this corner and put your mark right here straight sideways, you would make it look like you could drive into the garage a little bit right there, okay? So it's like the garage door is going up, but we can see this wall, just like you can see this wall up there. So this is really a fascinating way to go about making a drawing, and it comes out looking really quite impressive after you have mastered this technique. So I think that's all we're going to get to today, and we're going to pick up with the fourth building on the left side of the street in the next session, and then continue on marching down the street on the right side of the drawing, and eventually we'll have the drawing completed, and then it will be time to go back and add, details, curtains in the windows, signage here and there, some sort of theme or activity going on in your town. So keep that in mind as we keep drawing. You need to be coming up with an idea for what's going to happen in your town when we finally complete it. All right, that's enough for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention. Have a good day.